Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading, then we examine a single relevant question that passage points us to. Today I'm joined by Wendy Korbusieski, and we are in the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verses 19 through 23. When I was younger, we played this game called Hot Potato. And you could use anything, a ball, a bean bag, whatever you wanted to. But the goal was to toss it to someone else as quickly as you possibly could, not to hold on to it. You wanted to get rid of the ball, the bean bag, whatever was being thrown at you, as fast as you could without dropping it. Well, there's this interesting line in verse 22 that might give us some similarities to the game of hot potato. The English translation don't highlight this quite as well as the original Hebrew text does. It's be a little bit more clear there. So if you compare the New American Standard Translation and the ESV, it says, "Cast your burden upon the Lord and he will sustain you." The older translations are actually not sure what to do with the make of the language. In later Hebrew, the verb came to mean burden, which is why our English translations tend to use that word. But in the Hebrew text, the word burden comes from the phrase that translates something given to you. So this verse would have this type of meaning. I'm going to give back what was given to you, or throw back or cast, if you will, what was given to you. It's like a hot potato. If it's given to you, you give it back or you pass it on. And the reality is betrayal is one of those hot potatoes in our life. What do you do? How do you deal with it when you've been given the hot potato of betrayal? I have found it difficult to wrap my mind around it at times. But the psalmist is suggesting that it was God who threw the potato. Now, David makes it clear that his equal or his companion or his friend is the one that betrayed him. But the language here implies that it was God that was the giver of the burden and must also be the receiver. So there's this sense in which God entrusts us with trials or even betrayal. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of weeks, I have asked God about a particular situation. Why would you give this one to me? Why would you have handed this to me? And I tell people I have a list of questions that I want to ask God when I get there, and most of them are going to be irrelevant. But I don't know that. I think this one's still going to be number one. You know, why was this specific thing put in my lap? You know, I think God could stop other people from hurting us. He could stop other people from betraying us. As a matter of fact, verse 19 says he rules forever. So we understand that he's in charge. He has that ability. But it is the context of the statement here that suggests it is over those former friends who have become David's enemies that God rules. God has allowed this betrayal in the sense that he gave it to David. John Newton, who was the writer of the song Amazing Grace, who was a slave ship captain, there's this quote attributed to him. It says, "Nothing can be unnecessary that he sends, and nothing can be necessary that he withholds." The good news is that when God entrusts us with these situations, and I think maybe sometimes that is the test, when God entrusts us with these situations, we can throw them back. And maybe that's what he's doing, is testing us. Are we going to give it back to him? We cannot continue to hold on to past hurts, past betrayals, because when we hold on to betrayal eventually becomes bitterness. And if we throw it back quickly, rather than letting it simmer for days or weeks or years, then we can avoid some of those other consequences that come along with that hurt. Now, it doesn't mean we can't share those burdens with others, because we're called to share one another's burdens, but we shouldn't throw it back on people. I call it vomiting. Sometimes we vomit on people just so we'll feel better. But David's inspired here to declare that the hurt and betrayal should be thrown onto God. Betrayals that are repaid onto others become revenge. When we pay somebody back because of what they've done for us, to us, excuse me, it becomes revenge. It's not, it becomes retribution often. The thing I understand is that God can handle the weight of any betrayal that you had. He was betrayed by his own people. John 1:11-12 says he came to his own people and even they rejected him. He was betrayed by Judas in Luke chapter 22. That's the story we all know. He was betrayed by Peter in that same chapter a little bit later on, where he denies that he even knows who Jesus is. But we have to also understand that the Lord was betrayed by us. Isaiah chapter 53 says, he was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with the deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised, and we did not care. So if there's anybody that can relate to betrayal, it is the Lord Jesus. So, Wendy, how do we throw our betrayals on the Lord? What are some practical steps that people take to do that? And maybe there are some action steps that he took in this psalm that would give you some insight.
Just easy peasy, pray and trust, right? Voila, it's done.
Right.
The pray part for me, especially when it comes to betrayal, you're feeling hurt and you're feeling angry. And I think in those conversations with God, it's okay to vent. I mean, he knows your heart anyway. He knows how you're feeling. He came and experienced it himself. He knows. Who better to commiserate with than the one who knows up front exactly what betrayal feels like? Vent. Share that hurt. Share the anger. Just let it all out. Give it to him. It doesn't have to be. I mean, he's holy. Don't get me wrong. And we come to him in reverence and respect, but he is also wants to be close like a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so let it out. Just, if you're going to word vomit on somebody, let it be God, because he's there. He's asking, give it to me. I want you to let me have it. Share it with me. Let me burden this with you. Give it back to me. And then I think the other most important thing in that time of prayer during betrayal is asking him to reveal his heart to you and for alignment. Kind of like, align my heart with your heart so that I can respond the way you would respond. I think that's after you get it all out, because it's kind of like a mourning process, if you will. You have to go through that denial, and then you go through that anger, and then you go through, all those stages of grief. You need to do that with him in lockstep. But, when you get to that place, you need to ask for that alignment. Reveal to me your heart and help align my heart with yours so that I respond the way you would respond. And then comes the wait. And, we talked about this a couple of days ago. The wait is the hard part. Meditating on his presence, waiting for him to show up, being still, waiting to watch him work that out in you first. You got to work it out in you first and then move in some ways, because more than anything, this trial is about how he's going to improve your spiritual health first.
Mm-hmm.
So once you see how it's moved in your life, then you can wait and see how it's moving, how he's going to work things out to, meter out that justice that you feel like you deserved, if you will. That's the waiting room, again, is the hard place to sit.
It's not that I don't talk to God about my problems when I'm praying. I'm not much of a venter.
You don't spew?
No, I can Some people might disagree with that. I can do that, but I'm typically not. Well, so the way I describe it to my wife. So my wife wants to, when something's bothering her, she will talk about it again and again and again. Um, and she will say, "I'm trying to talk through it." Her frustrations, but she gets frustrated with me because I don't do the same thing.
I've just recently listened to some experts who said that rumination, that's called rumination, when you just think about those things over and over and over again, is perhaps the leading cause of depression and anxiety.
So I would agree with that. Clearly, what I think Scripture indicates that what your mind dwells on is sets the tone of your attitude and your mental health and all those things. I am exactly the opposite. If something's really bothering me, I typically don't want to talk about it. Because if I do, the more I talk about it, the madder I'm going to get. And somebody eventually is going to get it, and it's usually the person who, it happens to be in front of me right at that particular moment. So I do better not talking about it. I do in prayer some, but I even feel weird coming to God. The place though that I do that most is in my journals. When I die, people are going to find out how pissed off I was at them. And I don't know if I can use that on a church podcast or not, but that's where I am most likely to
when you're journaling, are you journaling to yourself, or are you journaling to God?
I keep 3 running journals. I keep a Bible journal for my Bible reading. It's separate. I keep a sermon journal. So every Sunday when I come in, I write in a sermon journal. And then I have my Bible journal and my daily journal, I both do every day. So my daily journal is digital. It hadn't always been, but in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been totally digital. And I kind of have a framework that I go through every day. It's a morning and evening. I do it twice a day. And there's a prayer section in there, and that's typically where it ends up. If I'm really frustrated, it's in that morning or evening section where I have some specific prompts that I'm being asked. And so it's a lot of times it is prayer, but I do it in written form instead of saying it out loud. And
so it's still prayer.
It's just one of those things, me complaining to God. I guess I'm not good at it, right?
But it's a place to get it off your chest.
And I do think you need to get it out, right? You just need to figure out where it's going to land.
And leave it.
Yeah.
Don't pick it back up.
Why do people, you think, hold on to hot potatoes?
I wrote a couple of reasons down that, pondering that. One, I think, is for protection. They think if I hold on to this, I won't forget. And that way I protect myself against any future acts of like betrayal or hurt or things like that. So if I just hold on to this kind of pain, I'm building like a little wall for myself. I won't allow people or situations or circumstances to get that close enough again to hurt me. Sometimes that's what they know is their identity. Their pain becomes their identity. That's who they are. I'm the victim X. I'm this person. This is how I identify. And so letting go of that, they don't know how to define themselves outside of their pain.
Right.
Which is a sad situation.
I see this happen because they think, but I can think of a specific example that's fairly well connected to me, that somebody has never been able to let go of something. And if you talk to them more than 10 minutes, it's coming out.
It's coming out again.
I mean, it's going to come bubbling out. And for some reason, they believe that they have some it does something for
It's almost like a martyrdom syndrome,
for me.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, everybody else is going on with their life.
Moved on.
Well, I yesterday I was having a conversation by text, and sometimes my wife will ask me, "Who are you writing a book to?" And it was, if you read this text string, there's probably several book chapters between the two of us. And the question I asked this person is, how many relationships are you willing to lose over your lifetime? Because you can't give this up. Like you are,
Wow.
you keep down this path, and you look at the people you lose in your life. And of course, they unleashed a torrent of curse words on me at that point. And but that's the truth. We leave relationships in our wake because after a while, people get tired of hearing the same old thing over and over again.
Yep.
And we have to find fresh ears to hear. I do think we become martyrs. I think it becomes, we don't know how to move on.
And unfortunately, resentment is trendy right now. We give it fancy names like
Church hurt,
narcissism, or invalidation, things like that. Those are the new buzzwords,
right.
Gaslighters, that kind of thing. But it's trendy to be mad at somebody,
right?
And what I tell my kids all the time, because that's that generation. That's what they do. They're always mad at somebody or something. People they don't even know.
Yeah.
Just
if everybody's a narcissist,
right.
Nobody's a narcissist.
Exactly. It's like you cannot open your hands to the good that God has for you if you're holding on to the garbage that somebody else threw in your face.
Yeah.
It's not your garbage. That's their problem.
Right.
Throw it. Let it go. Put it down. And really, that's what the psalm is saying. Cast it back. Let it go. It's not your garbage to begin with. It was somebody else's.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is learning how to give it up, cast it off, pass it off. Good. Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we continue a conversation in the book of Psalms.